Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. This week, I was given the wonderful opportunity to be able to catch up with Cleo Capture once again. And so me and Cleo originally met in December last year. And I mainly just saw her work when she was working kind of around the old Josh Mount bauble a little bit with some models and helping them build their portfolios as well. It's been great to sort of help her and support her in her sort of creative journey as well, within the city as well. So I'm now going to hand over to her, and she is going to talk a little bit about what she does and why she does it.
Hi, so I'm Charlene Thornborough. You might have seen or heard about me, social media platforms, Cleo Capture. I'm recently new to the industry. I've lived in Salisbury my whole life. My background was actually a beauty therapist before, and then I got introduced to the modelling industry, which I absolutely loved. And I did that for 2 years, met some amazing people that I'm still friends with now and connect to on a daily basis, which that actually helps me to this day as well, with references, connections, networking, even events. But then obviously COVID happened and we went into lockdown. And I was never comfortable doing modelling online. Like a lot of these were doing these remote shooting. One, I didn't have the facilities to do that. I didn't have the equipment or anything like that. But a couple of months before COVID, I actually bought my first camera with a good friend of mine, John Reese. He does photography. He's in Salisbury as well. I went with him and I practiced a couple of times on my children, friends. I didn't really concentrate on the knack of it, equipment wise, or how to even do it, to be honest. And it was only last summer I found myself really struggling in the lockdown. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm a single mum to 3 children. I felt like I didn't have any purpose. And I really needed something to distract my time. So I just picked up my camera again and just kept shooting, looking on YouTube. And actually I realized I'm actually very good at this. and yeah, the more I went along, the more people kept going like, Charlene, like, wow, like you've obviously got like the eye to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when firstly, welcome to the podcast, but also, when we first met, I don't think you would, to give the viewers context, I think when we first met, I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like Christmas last year ish, somewhere around then.
Yeah.
Like, we kind of knew of each other, but it was like the more official, like actually having a conversation, getting to know each other, kind of wasn't until like Christmas. But, for me, I saw your work and I was just like, you're incredible at what you do. But I think for a long time, and the reason why I smiled, those who aren't on the podcast, they won't see that, but I smile when you say you're really good at it, because for a long time I've been saying to you that you're really good at it. And I think there's this misconception sometimes in photography or whenever we do anything that we don't want to say that because it makes us seem like an egotistical prick, right? But that's not. There's a difference, I think, when you understand you're good at something and then there's being an egotistical prick about it, right? And the reason why I smiled is because for a long time I've been trying to get you to understand that you actually are bloody good. And the and the thing is, it's this thing of like, yes, you are, but until someone else says that it's not, doesn't actually know you, but is in the industry themselves, or etc., you won't necessarily understand it, and you won't necessarily get it. And it's really glad for me to really see you're really starting to come into your own now in what you're doing and how you're doing it as well. And it was great to see how you worked as well, because a couple of weeks ago I was given the opportunity to come down on one of your shoots, which was great. Great to see how you work, great to see how you work
Yeah,
with
that was so much fun as well, because it was another creative, like, coming into my little bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, let's ask with that. I mean, I was going to ask you, I mean, how did you find that process? I mean, because a lot of people say to me when I do behind the scenes or when I come on a set or etc., that sometimes it can be challenging for them because they're used to doing it kind of their way, and they're used to having it, these are the things I do and this is how I do it. Sometimes people can find it challenging to have that other creative mind there and have that other creative, choice. I mean, for you, how was that process for you?
Oh no, I absolutely loved it, because for me it was another pair of eyes like coming in, and there was a couple of times you even gave me tips, because with photography you're always learning anyway. Like, I know my work is, I reckon, good at the moment, but you learn every single shoot. Like, you pick up tips from another creative, like, all the time. So for me, it was great to have someone overlooking it.
Yeah, and I also think having that different perspective can be really, really valuable because, they might see something that you do just out of principle on the shoot or etc. When you're actually like, actually, I didn't realize I did that, or etc. Or those those little details that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily know that you do without them being able to watch it back and view it back in that respect as well.
Definitely. And the thing for me as well, like, when I photograph, for me, it doesn't feel like work. To me, the most important thing when you're on a photo shoot is have fun. And I'm such a sociable person as well. So, like, just having another person there just made the whole day like 10 times better, because there's more people involved. You're having more fun. There's more stuff going on. And I know Honora, who I shot that day, like, she absolutely loved it as well, because she hasn't had that come along to one of her shoots before. Like, Honora is quite an established model in the modeling industry, and I've been wanting to work with her for quite a while. So it was exciting for me as well, bringing her in on that day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I say, for me, it was a great opportunity to see kind of how you work, and for me to have that kind of fly on the wall aspect, to just let you do your thing and let you see your creative process in that respect. I mean, how did you kind of establish that creative process for you? Because I think a lot of photographers, when they start out, or a lot of videographers and a lot of people who listen to the podcast, they are starting out photographers. They are people who don't necessarily, finding their feet, whatever, or maybe they've done it for a couple of years, couple of months, etc. But they don't, for me, that's why I always ask that question, because I think it's valuable to see how other people think creatively and actually come up with those creative ideas. So how did you kind of get to the point you're at now with your creative style, I guess, is the question there?
God, it's actually quite a hard question. I've always had a creative mind, even as a child, whether it was playing guitar, writing songs. Like, that's a massive part of me. I'm very good, like, anything practical I put my mind to, I normally am very good at it, as long as I stick to it. So for me, obviously the modeling, that's how I got introduced anyway to the photography side. And I remember, even when I had modeling shoots coming up, I would have these ideas going through my mind, like the image that I wanted the final image to be, but obviously I was the model, and I don't know, it never turned into that image that I had in my mind. So now, being on, like, behind the camera instead, I'm able to put those ideas and colors and tones and everything to it myself now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, one of those things where I think there's merit, and I think there's anyone who's a photographer and anyone who's a videographer or anyone who wants to be, I think there's huge value in being on both sides, right? I think you have to be nowadays on both sides of the camera, because I'll give you an example. In my job specifically, if you are trying to help a client come over their challenges of, being on a podcast, for example, or doing an informational video, or talking about their business for their marketing, they have to be in front of camera. That's terrifying. I mean, you are the newest example of someone who I'm really pleased to have on, because you have a great story, you have a great mindset, you have great talent, but I think sometimes you're concerned that you don't push yourself hard enough, in my opinion, to push yourself outside your comfort zone. And that's why I invited you on, and that's why I wanted you on the podcast, because I think it's also going to showcase, and that's why I want to talk about it a little bit, because I think it's valuable for people listening to know that, like, without figure of speech here, you were basically kicking and screaming all the way up to this point of coming on, right? Let's get something very clear. In my opinion, it was basically, I don't really want to. Oh my God, do I really? Oh my God, I'm going to sound like an idiot. Oh my God, what the hell? Yeah, but it was basically that. I mean, like, I'll throw it back to you, but it wasn't it, right? Like, like, and there's nothing wrong with that, just to be clear. It's just, I think you're here, you're doing it, so congratulations on that. But also, I think
Thank
it's
you.
I think it's one of those things where, especially in a creative sense, when you are able to do that, and the more you push yourself outside your comfort zone, the faster you'll be able to grow, and the more you'll be able to grow. And where you think you're going to be in a year is actually going to be an understatement, because if you continue to gain that momentum and you continue to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, enough, then then you'll be able to do that.
I do suffer with like anxiety. I'm quite bad, like panic attacks and all things like that. But that's why I love this as well, because it does push me out of my comfort zone, like meeting new people, pushing my confidence, and even like my work. It's like you're expressing like yourself without having to talk, like in public spaces and things like that, which is mad because every person I've worked with, like they've completely enjoyed it. They say I'm bubbly, outgoing, and all this. So it just shows how much of a good time I have, like when I'm there as well.
Yeah, but I don't think it's something that you necessarily feel, because you're very focused on the quote unquote job at hand, right? So, and I have this as well. Like, I still get nervous on shoots. I still get nervous about, it's a big deal. Like maybe me running my own podcast nowadays isn't a big deal because I've done it a billion times. But still me being invited on a podcast, or whatever that next step is for me as a business owner, I still get nervous about it. When I have a big new client, or a new client that I'm bringing on, or doing a new job, or the first job for a new client that I really want to impress, I get fucking nervous. I have panic attacks about it. I get anxiety. Let's not beat around the bush. That's the reality, right? Being a business owner is hard, but the thing is, it's about, I think for me anyway, it's about being okay with that and being understanding. Okay, why am I anxious? Right? I'm anxious because I want to do a good job. I want to be able to create great content. I want to be able to fulfill the promises and the expectations I've set for that client, right? And I think for me, it's one of those things where you can it's okay to be like that, firstly, but then secondly, it's about doing the job anyway, and doing what you feel that you're anxious about as well, because that is the definition of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I'm a massive critic, like to myself anyway. Like there'll be one image sometimes when I'm editing and I'm looking at it, like and playing about with it. And sometimes it's that one image I'm not sure about that then ends up getting like the most love. And then I get like 2-3 messages from people asking my rates and stuff. And I'm like, what? Like, I need to stop being so critical with myself.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's like you can be critical of yourself, and that's not necessarily the biggest deal, because you're always going to be critical of yourself. Every photographer and every videographer I know always wants to be better. But the thing is, like, just because you want to be better and want to be better at what you do doesn't mean you shouldn't charge for what you do, and shouldn't charge a fair rate for what you do either, because the reality of the fact is you're providing a valuable service, and we could sit here and argue whether it's valuable or not, but that's up to suggestion. But if people are asking, then they see it as valuable. They wouldn't be asking otherwise, right? Because they wouldn't give it time, and they wouldn't give it attention. Because the one thing which every advertiser and every marketer will tell you is the main currency of life that you want to attract as a brand or a business is attention. It's not money, it's not time, it's the time and the attention that they really want to attract. Because people will, businesses, big brands, the Coca-Colas of the world, etc., they spend large amounts of money trying to get the attention on their brand. That's the point, right? Now, if you're doing good enough work, arguably I would say you can get that attention without having to pay the money. Now, it comes really interesting when you start adding in like paying money to put it in front of the right people and having really powerful work, because then you really start moving mountains, so to speak, right? Because what you're going to do then is you're going to be in a position where your work is going to move mountains, but then also the way you're outputting it is also going to do that. I mean, for me, like, how have you found, I mean, this is kind of like the Salisbury community-esque part of it as well, so you are obviously a member of Salisbury's community in regards to the photography community, etc. I mean, how have you found the communities help kind of support your work, and sort of, have you met people through it? Have you sort of, have you noticed there's some of the same names? Obviously I'm part of it, etc. It's not like a specific group, it's just I think it's a, something which changes every week, every month, every year. it's people come and go in it, but I think it's one of those things where when people see talent, they will want to support it, from what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's only sort of been the last couple of months that I did start getting involved with the Salisbury creatives, because I was still in my little bubble of the photographers and model like kind of side things, which was like a completely different platform. So I think it was actually you that approached me first. So then I was obviously following you on social media, saw a couple of groups that you've been posting in, so then I joined as well. And yeah, like everyone just seems to be quite interested, because I think my work is very different to a lot of work that I've seen around here photography wise. And yeah, I've met quite a few people now. I'm seeing Emily again tomorrow morning. We're going for brunch this time.
Hey,
We're upscaling, not just a coffee.
absolutely.
And then obviously yeah, Chris, and is it Snowy
the dog photography, or Sam.
That's it. Yeah, he contacted
He'll
me
be.
the other day.
It's ironic. Funny fact for you: he's probably editing this right now with a massive grin on his face. I'm calling it right now.
Oh, call out. So yeah, so it's just really nice being part of that community, because I did feel, especially when I went into lockdown, I felt very on my own, because I didn't have anyone local to me that was into the same things as me. So yeah, I also need to be getting involved with your evening shoots. I have said to them Wednesday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, no, absolutely, 100%. I mean, for those who don't know, in that respect, me and my circle, member of the team, Chris, etc. We try to get out and we try to connect as much as possible. We try to connect as much as possible, especially now we're in the releasing of lockdown, but also the lighter evenings. It allows us to sort of be able to do it in when it's not absolutely freezing or to be down with rain or etc. As well. So it's a great time to connect as well, especially with the guys I actually work with as well, because it allows me to get to know them as people a lot more, and them to get to know me as a person a lot more. And it's less about what are we doing with business, how's the business, blah 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 blah, and more about, okay, how's Colton, what's Colton doing, how's Will, how's Sam, how's Chris, how's Blake, blah 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 blah. How are they actually doing as people, right? So I think it's, and if you are listening to this and you're not from Salisbury, and there isn't a quote unquote group or a meeting of photographers or whatever, and of course do it safely with COVID and all that going on, right? But create one, connect with other photographers. If you don't have a group like that, then make one, right? It just takes one person. I mean, no one specifically decided to start it. It was just something that we started doing, and then we've kind of continued doing it, and it's been beneficial for content creation, but it's also been beneficial for our relationships as friends, and also as co-workers and colleagues, in that respect as well. But I think for me, have you found that there's kind of a kind of overall community, I support you, you support me, that kind of feeling in Salisbury specifically?
Well, I think I mentioned it to you before, but we did have social networking meetings, part of the modelling and the photography side of things. I used to go on once a month. It used to be in Wetherspoons every Wednesday, but that it was more like photographers with models, like kind of like a lot what I shoot on my Instagram. But Hannah, who arranges that, she is thinking when to start that up again, which obviously anyone is welcome to come to. It's for anyone creative. You don't have to specialize in fashion models or glamour or anything like that. It's just photographers, and quite a few of us used to get together.
Yeah. See, and I would say, for anyone looking to start out, and this is gonna be my follow-on question. I mean, just create connections, right? Build connections with people, get to know people, have conversations with people. Push it if this is something that you're worried about, and make the action, have the action, do the action, even if you don't feel it's necessarily I don't feel comfortable about this. Do it anyway, right? Because what it's going to do is it's going to, number one, push you outside your comfort zone, but also number two, it's going to allow more people to know who you are, what you do, and why you do it. Right, and there's a lot of analogies and a lot of quotes that I could use here, but when you are asked about what you do, that's the time where you get to have the opportunity to open your mouth and explain to the world what you do and why you do it, and that's the important bit, and that's why I think personally, it really allows you to be able to change that, You know, I can go from saying I'm only a videographer to now saying I'm a video strategist. Now, you may be asking the question, normally the question that follows from that is, what the hell's a video strategist, Colin? Right? And, you know, the simple answer there is, I'm more than a videographer because I help with the strategy of video. Right? It's not just about using video, it's about using content, and how do you use that content, and how do other videos work together to help you showcase your business and your brand in a way which is going to talk to your ideal consumer, right? And I won't go too into that today, but that's the brunt of like why a strategist is better than a videographer or etc. But you need the videography skills in the same way you need photography skills to be a specialist in, you know, glamour or fashion or portraits or products or food or cars or whatever it is that you like to shoot, right? And also I think, I mean, let me ask you, do you think there's merit in, in your sector, you're very into fashion, glamour, that kind of thing, but would you see value and would you be up for shooting something that's not necessarily your specialty, quote unquote, just for the sake of doing it? And then if so, what do you see benefit in doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I just think most of it I've not really had the opportunity to yet. So at the moment I am in the process of networking and just trying to build that relationship with different people around Salisbury. Obviously I've got to just earn their trust and build that relationship with them. Like, a lot of people know I do shoot fashion and glamour. A couple of times I've done some product photography for a couple of local businesses, and some headshots for people that own businesses, but it's not something I've done a lot of, only because I've not had the opportunity. So that's one thing I'm trying to venture out like more into, but obviously I'm just having to build that network first.
Yeah. I mean, I think my main advice there to you and anyone listening would be, you know, if you want an opportunity specifically, put it out there. Put it out there into reality. Put it out on your story. Ask people about it. Say, look, like, I'll give you an example. I wanted to create more music videos, right? Or I want to create more XYZ, right? Or higher end productions or whatever, or short films. Okay, then I'm going to put that out into reality. I'm going to say on my Facebook page, I'm going to say on my, in content, I'm going to say, oh, I would love to do more of X, whatever X may be. And then what will happen is people will notice that and they will go, actually, you know, they'll share it on their Facebook. Maybe they don't know anyone specific, but they'll ask you to share it on the Facebook feed. They'll ask around for you. And what I've found is, especially if there's no money involved and you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, or for the love of doing it, or because you want to gain it as part of your portfolio, then a lot of people will give you a lot of time and energy to do it, because they're like, you know, let's do it. You know, I can say hand on heart that, you know, everyone I mentioned a little bit earlier in our little group at the moment, if I said, oh, I want to do this like music video, or I want to do this like narrative piece or whatever, and I needed their help with it, I'm almost confident, I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm almost confident to say they would help me, because you know, that's why creatives do what we do. We want to help other creatives do what they want to do, right? So if they have an idea, or they have a goal, or they have a thing that I can help with, and it's the same with what I do, right? Like, it's not always necessarily a commercial relationship, right? In some cases it is, yes, of course, but that's only because I run it as a business. If I didn't run it as a business, I wouldn't have to worry about the money. The only reason I have to worry about the money is because I don't have a business if I don't. It's as simple as that. And, you know, but the reasoning why I do it is the same. It's because I want to help that business owner achieve whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, whether it's they want to make more revenue, or they want to showcase their new product, or they want to showcase their new service, or they want to help more people, or they have new premises, or whatever it may be. That's my way of helping them do that. And, you know, that's why I always ask myself, you know, and I ask people, why are you doing it first? We don't talk about money first. We never talk about money first, because I want to know the reasoning about why you're doing it is for the right reasons first, instead of necessarily being in the position where, oh, I'm going to do it because it's profitable. You know, so for me, that's the main thing. And I think it's important to also support others in their craft as well, and in what they're doing, because you'll learn different skills, and working around people who do similar to what you do, they may do things differently, and that may give you an idea for something you could do, or it will actually allow you to pick up tips and tricks from them, because, you know, everyone shoots differently, everyone has a different shooting style, etc., editing style, so on, so on, so on. And to be honest, again, I'll throw back to you in a moment, but everyone's editing style is different. And, you know, if I see an editing style I like, I'll just ask the person, how did you emulate this part of the image, or how did you do this, or how did you do this? Because, and in most cases, people are going to tell you because it's not a hidden secret. Right, I think a lot of photography, a lot of videography, there's a misconception sometimes. It's like, oh, if I tell you, you're going to steal all my clients.
Yeah, and Snowdog on Instagram, he was chatting to me, and he was like, I really need to see like your image before and then an edited image. So I sent it to him, and he was like what the hell, you like, because my camera like cost me 250 quid on eBay. Like, it's not a top-notch camera like at all. So I think he just couldn't believe it. Like, he was like, what? Like, and I just told him my editing process.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, ask people if you like someone's style. There's probably you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and then you get the outcome, right? It's not magic, right? They're using probably the same software you're using. They're probably shooting similar ways to you are. So if you want to learn it, then learn it. Just ask, and then the majority of people will tell you. I mean, let me throw it back to you and ask, if you were starting out, say tomorrow, or recently, in the experience you have, what would you suggest people do to start actually getting into photography, maybe specifically in the glamour or fashion world, but not necessarily in that world? I mean, you can do general, or you can do specifically fashion and glamour if you want, but it's up to you. But what advice would you give to people starting out now in the space?
God, I find these questions so hard, like being put on the spot. Well, first of all, you've got to enjoy it. There's no point doing it if you're going to go out and think, oh, for God's sake, like shooting. You need to be excited about it. Definitely plan in advance, like where you're going to be shooting. So, say, for example, if it's a studio, know what's going to be at the studio. So you've already got that like image in your head. Like, there's so many people that I know, they don't like shooting at studios. They think you can't get much out of it, but you really can, because that's when you play with the lighting. There's loads of things you can do at a studio. But then you get the others with location. So if it's going to be location, definitely weather. Definitely look up the weather. A lot of people that want photo shoots, they go, oh yeah, it's such a bright sunny day. Well, us behind the camera are like that. No.
Oh God! Please tell me there's like one cloud in the sky, please.
Yeah, you're just waiting for that one little Mr. Cloud to come over.
Yeah, there are the amount of times I've been on a video shoot outside, and the client's like, "Let's go. It's really nice and sunny." I'm like, "Can we just give it like 5 minutes? Because there's a massive white cloud about to go in the way of the sun." And basically, the reason why, for those who don't know, is that the higher the sun is, the harsher the light's going to be. And you can make it work to an extent, but it's not going to be a very flattering look, period. It's just not. That's why a lot of photographers, a lot of videographers like to shoot at sunrise or sunset, because the sun is going to be either directly behind your subject or directly in front of your subject. So and the lighting is a lot softer. It just is. So the only way to actually emulate this in the middle of the day is to have it diffused by a cloud. Right, so diffusion basically just means it's going to spread that light out and make it a lot more even, instead of it being a really hard patch and then like a really, really dark patch. Now, there is ways that you can sort of balance that out a little bit in the post-production process, but it's always better to create images or videos, if you can, in camera as close as you want them to look like, because it means the editing process takes less time, which means your client's happier because the turnaround time will be less, number one. Number two, it's also going to, there's some limitations. You can only push certain images a certain way, a certain amount, right, before you just lose the data there. Because at the end of the day, whenever you capture anything, all that the camera's doing is saying, okay, in this image there is this amount of data that tell me which pixel is what color. That's basically what you're doing. And then it's an amount of pixels in one direction followed by an amount of pixels in another direction, and that's your image, right? So when you understand that, you need to be able to kind of help that data saving process a little bit. So if it's a really harsh light or a harsh thing, it's going to find it a lot harder to keep that detail and that detail in the image, unless you don't want that. That some shoots don't suit a very heavily detailed scene. It's better to simplify it, or to silhouette a subject, for example. Then I would argue you would actually want hard light, but it's about understanding the limitations of the light and then also setting those expectations, in my opinion, for the client. Because if you're going to wait for a cloud, you should probably plan in the time it's going to take you to wait for the cloud, right?
Definitely, like when I'm doing shoots for people, especially if it's a location one, like I will show you the back of the camera images as we're going along, because sometimes like you can say like, oh, that's a really lovely spot there, but honestly it's not working, and I will show you through my screen and what it is like back of the camera. It doesn't matter how I set the aperture, like, or anything, or the iOS, it does not matter, it's not going to work. But I think so many people as well, they put they can take a photo on their mobile phone, and your mobile phone can cancel like a lot of that out. But what they don't realize is that image is not going to have the quality of the image on your camera.
So there's a lot of technical details there, but the simple fact of the matter is when you take a photo on your mobile phone fakes it. It doesn't. You don't see it. You don't know that, but it's actually taking probably about 3 to 4 images, and then what's called image stacking, which is basically it takes the bottom one, and then it takes what it can from that image, and then puts another one on top of it, and another one, and another one, and another one, right? So what you'll get is what's known as a HDR effect, or a high detailed effect. But the problem is with a phone is because the sensor that your camera is, or the camera itself, is so small, it cannot capture as much data as Cleo's camera, my camera, whatever. And it's not necessarily, that's not the be all and end all of what makes a good photographer by any means, but there is a definite difference. And I'm not saying you can't take good photos on a phone. You can, you definitely can, but you need to be aware of what the limitations of that device is. And also it brings up the question that we discussed before, but why are you bringing in a photographer in the first place? Why are you bringing in a videographer in the first place? If you think you are good enough, or a phone is good enough to do the job you need it to do, then do it yourself. No, honestly,
you're not being blunt or nothing.
Right. I mean it from the place of care, but if that's honestly what you think, then please do it yourself, and then come back to me and have a conversation about how hard it actually is to get a good product. Because a lot of what we talk about in photography or videography or in general, whenever we ever create a process, you can use a phone to create good product, but the reality of the fact is you still need to have the understanding behind it, how to frame it, how to light it, how to control exposure, even on a phone. There's a lot you can do on a phone. I'm not mocking a phone, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to compare to a professional using a professional camera. It's not. I'm not saying you need £1,000 camera. I'm saying you need a professional who knows how to use the kit they have to get the product that you want. That's the difference. It's actually the person you're buying more than, or spending your money on, than actually the camera, right? Because to be honest with you, and there's a lot of talk, especially in our industry, and I'm sure Cleo's found this as well, where gear's not the be all and end all. Oh, don't buy. It is to an extent, right? It is to an extent, right? The camera you shoot on does change the look of the image to an extent. It does. It makes the job easier to an extent. Yes, it does. However, if you give someone who understands how to use a camera and someone who doesn't understand how to use a camera a cheaper camera to the one who does actually understand how to use it, and a really expensive camera to the person who doesn't know how to use it, I'm almost willing to put a large amount of money on the fact that the person who knows how to use a camera will come up with a better image. But it's also, what is your better image? That's it's subjective, isn't it? It's like anything, right? We do art, we do anything. It's money, everything's subjective. A lot of money to someone could be tiny amounts to someone else. It's all subjective. So, I think, let me throw back to you and sort of see, how did you sort of decide or sort of understand or was aware of your skills, and not necessarily, if you still do, are not tied to necessarily the camera you're using? Firstly, do you think that your skills are, you are more valuable than the camera you're using in the respect to, it doesn't actually matter what you're shooting on? Or do you think it is tied to the camera?
Yeah, a little bit of both, because the actual first camera I bought was this little Sony one, and I knew how to use it just as much as I did the one I've got. No, actually, I'm talking crap now, because I didn't really know much about the settings and stuff when I did have that camera. So I don't know if it is a coincidence or not, but then when I got this camera, which, like I said, secondhand on eBay, 250 quid, which nothing really, well, obviously I've topped up on my lenses now, but it's not an expensive camera, but my knowledge has improved. So I think it's me more than the camera.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where once you understand that, then it opens up a world of opportunities for you, right? Because then you're not like, oh, I don't have the £1,000 camera, right? Or even when you do have the £1,000 camera, okay, I don't have the £10,000 camera, because that yardstick like, it doesn't matter what camera you shoot on, that yardstick just changes, because you'll get the £1,000 camera and then you'll suddenly want the £10,000 camera, or you'll want the next lens, or you'll want the other lens, or you'll want the other adapter or other flash or other lighting diffuser or whatever it is. There's always something else that you will want as a photographer, and that's fine. That's part of the fun, don't get me wrong, but also it's one of those things where that shouldn't limit what you can do, because you could arguably still create the same images. Is it going to be harder, right? And this is the argument of like, should you shoot in a studio or should you shoot on location? Well, what you gain in a studio, the only benefit in my opinion on a studio is you have more control. That's the only difference, right? The product can be the same. Is it harder to create a studio looking like image on location? Yes, it becomes harder because you have less control over all of the variables, right? But you can do it. It just becomes harder. In the same way, in a studio, it's easier to get even lighting because you have complete control over the lighting, for example. It might be a lot harder to do that on location because especially if you're using the sun as your light source, it might be, okay, well, you're going to have to use a reflector, or you're going to have to use this and this and this to allow you to get a similar look. And it won't be identical because the sun will change. Maybe it's slightly got a cloud in front of it. Maybe it's got a full cloud in front of it. Maybe it's not got a cloud at all. And are you in a little bit of shade? Are you not? What? I'll use a real life example from the behind the scenes shoot we did more recently. We did a part outside where initially we thought that it would work in one location. We found out that it wasn't. Right. So how did you sort of kind of explain that a little bit from your side? I mean, how did you sort of establish, okay, this is not going to work, and why? And then how did you remedy that problem, if you remember, outside in the garden?
It was that sun, wasn't it? Direct, like above us. So it was trying to find that shade, and then then I got my the off-camera flash out. That works. That because sometimes if you use a flash outside, especially when it's harsh lighting, if you use a flash, it can actually help. I've found that anyway when I've done shooting on location, as long as that sun's kind of behind the model, and then have your flash on the camera.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is you're balancing out the light, right? So the issue normally that you run into when you've got such a bright scene or very harsh lighting is because it's only illuminating one area, and that's where you can use a flash or a flash gun or a light or a softbox or whatever to fill in that area, right? To fill in that other area of darkness, right? So it might be the other side of someone's face, perhaps, or the front of their face if the sun's behind them, perhaps. In that respect, like they have the environment around them is really, really nicely illuminated, but they become quite silhouetted. Now, sometimes you want that, right? In a more stylistic look, you may want that. You may want to silhouette your subjects. You may want to silhouette whoever it is or whatever it is you're taking photos of, but that's a choice you can make. And if you don't, then this is where having these tools allow you to have that control. So I think that's the main thing. But I think it's one of those things where, as we said, it's not about necessarily the gear that you will obtain. It's about using the gear you've got and being able to showcase what you can do and how you can do it in that respect as well. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of everything I wanted to discuss today, really. I mean, I'd like to add in on the end of the podcast, or towards the end of the podcast anyway, that, do you have any questions, or do you want to check on a topic, or do you want to have anything you can ask me? Because I've had interviews before where I'm like, go on, let me ask a question, go on. Because you have a burning question sometimes inside. So that's why I like to throw it in, but you may not, so,
Yeah.
do you have anything you want to ask me, or a topic you want to throw in?
So as I said earlier, we're always learning. So what is the next thing you want to be learning? Like, what have you looked at and been like, wow, I want to learn that?
I mean, to be honest, this is like I could answer this in two ways. Like, there's always a camera thing that I'm working on at the time, right? So it could be something simple like I want to learn how to use lighting better, or what happens if I put a panel here in this scenario, etc. But they're quite surface level stuff. I think the main thing for me, and we've discussed this privately as well, is for me I'm focusing a lot more on my role in the company and my role in my company, and seeing how I can actually articulate what we're doing firstly and what we do as a company to potential clients better firstly, but also secondly how I can support the team I'm building within the company to be able to do their job better and be able to serve me better, which in turn means I can serve my clients better, which is why you should have a team, in my opinion. It should allow you to be able to focus on the aspects that you feel you do best, and you should bring in people who are better than you at those other aspects. And I'm now in a very fortunate position where I'm having projects and I'm being brought onto projects where I have the budget and the logistics to be able to bring on other videographers and other camera operators to help me do my job better. And and for me there's two aspects of that. Firstly, there's the control aspect in your own brain. It's like, okay, I'm actually not filming today, or I'm actually not doing the filming today. Like in your case, maybe, I'm not taking the photos today, but that doesn't take away the value you add to the project, because, for me, that, especially in a filming context, that allows me to work more one-to-one with the person on screen. In the case of the key example more lately was we were doing some interviews for a client, and I was able to work directly with the people on camera to get their performance to be what I needed it to be, so I could make sure that the video was going to serve what the client's purpose was, for the whole reason why we were there in the first place. And, how have I been able to learn how to do that? Well, it's like this, in the respect of this is interviewing to an extent. And, this was something I lent into during first lockdown because it was one of the only things I could do. But also, it allowed me to sort of also ask myself, what do I want to do as well, right? What roles do I want to have in the company? So I don't know whether that answers your question, but does that?
Yeah. In regards to the lighting and stuff, I'm actually, like I said, you're always learning, and I've got a lighting class on Sunday actually at Inspire Studios in Churchfield. So it'd be I think there's about 3 of us going actually for 4 hours, and that's to get that more knowledge of lighting and everything in the studio. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and this is what I think is a common occurrence for anyone who is listening to the podcast. You'll find that everyone in their creative way, in different ways, always trying to better themselves at something, right? And I think that's really, really important. And a final question before we end, because it's been like a question I don't know the answer to. How did you come up with your name?
You spotted the fringe, right?
Yes, no one else on the podcast will know because no one's going to see you. But yes.
Yeah. So basically, I've got a little bit of an Oriental face with my eyes, and my haircut is a blunt fringe and shoulder length, which I've got it up at the moment, so you wouldn't see the resemblance. And I also wear winged eyeliner since I was like 14. So I used to get called Cleopatra. So of course I had to be Cleo Capture.
And on that lovely
How
note,
nerdy is that?
I love it. Oh, it's amazing. It's great. I love it. On that note, where can people find you if they do want to reach out about just having a chat with you, seeing what you do, seeing more of your work, that kind of thing? Where is best for people to reach out?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Cleo_capture. And the best way to actually reach me on Facebook is not the Cleo Capture page, because I don't know how they've got it laid out, but I find it absolutely rubbish. So you're best off finding my personal page, which is Charlene Thornborough.
Yay. Any final thoughts or anything?
Keep creating.
And the final question that I told myself I wouldn't ask, I've now decided I'm going to ask, was how do you feel now you've just done a 44 and a bit minute interview with me on the podcast?
Like I want to find a glass of wine. But good. No, but I feel proud. I feel proud that I've done it.
So I think the final message there, and I think you would agree, would be push yourself outside your comfort zone, even when you feel terrified about doing it, because what you'll actually find is you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad I done it. I was thinking of like 5 different ways I could get out of it.
Because the thing is, like, you couldn't even said to me, "Oh, I can't. I've got COVID," because that doesn't stop this from happening either, right? Like, okay, that sucks, but we still technically could do the podcast because I don't need to be with you because we're doing it via Zoom. But thank you ever so much, honestly, and well done on coming on. And it was great to have you on. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gents. I hope you did enjoy this brief or semi-brief interview with Cleo. I'm really, really proud that she actually ended up coming on because she was very, very nervous about the Pacific coming on the podcast. But I think if you're going to take anything from this podcast, that pushing yourself outside your comfort zone can be a very, very valuable opportunity for you. And yeah, I hope you're having a fabulous week. I'll be back very, very soon with some more content to showcase someone new and exciting, and showcase something new and exciting. So I've got some great things to come, and look forward to sharing them with you. So thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you very, very soon.